company called Perkbox, and I'm here to share our story with you. A story of a business that almost shut down twice, had 3 pivots, but still managed to deliver a 45x return to our early angel investors, and obviously there's still more to come. There is, obviously, as you guys are aware of, Slido, so if you have any questions, please fire them away at Slido, and I'll be addressing them towards the end of the session. So what really helped us, convert the 500K of investment that we took initially a long time ago into over 100 million in value is taking our biggest handicap and then making that our biggest asset. So that's what I'm here to talk about today, and how we went about doing that. So when we launched the business originally, there were 3 co-founders. What we thought initially was a great idea in 2011, which was our focus on SMEs. A focus on SMEs, helping SMEs grow and succeed. Actually, we realized when we went out to the market that it was actually a massive handicap. It was a massive handicap because SME businesses in 2011 were not really investable. You're talking very early days. I mean, SaaS was a whole different world in 2011. And a lot of the institutional investors, VCs, didn't really want to touch SMEs. There had been some investments in the UK which had turned out sour. So we thought it was a great idea, unique market, untapped market, and we found that it was actually a major handicap. The other reason it was a major handicap was because cost of acquisition was very high. PPC acquisition was your standard model, or outbound telesales, field sales is what typically insurance companies, payment processors were doing for acquiring SME customers. And that's obviously a very expensive approach. So, and to top it off, the SMEs have very significant churn, obviously because companies start and shut down and things like that, and also very high level of fragmentation. So a small business does not think of themselves as a small business; they think of themselves as a small accounting firm or a small legal firm. So in a nutshell, what we thought was a brilliant idea, unique target opportunity, was actually a big handicap. Now what we did, which really helped us succeed, and is still kind of our secret sauce, is taking that handicap and converting that into our biggest asset. So what we did is we really developed very deep understanding of SMEs, different segments, how they operate, what their key needs are. But more importantly, we started using B2C social strategies to drive B2B acquisition. So that was how we converted this big handicap to a big asset for us. So we were one of the first companies to actually start using Facebook and Twitter to drive B2B acquisition many years ago. So that's how we converted our biggest handicap into our biggest asset and generated the return for our investors. And then, so I'm going to take you through our story in the next few slides. So that's how kind of the revenue curve or excitement curve of our business looks like. So we, as you can see, 3 big pivots, the big bubbles there, and how we went about our business. So in Q1 2011, we launched Perkbox in its first iteration. It was a group buying business. Groupon was in its heydays, so we thought, hey, Groupon for small businesses would be amazing and would make a lot of sense. We did our customer research. Everybody said, hey, it's a great idea. We launched that in early 2011. We raised angel investments, some very well-known entrepreneurs in the UK, people behind the likes of Zoopla, Lovefilm, Priceline, Betfair, and so on and so forth. So angel investors were excited about the opportunity, but no institution was. So we never managed to raise any VC money. And because of the handicap I mentioned, we realized that businesses focused on SMEs were not really investable. So that's how the business started. 6 months later, we realized, oh shit, Groupon for B2B is not going to work. It was actually a very, personally, a very low point for me. I don't think I've ever been that low because our third co-founder left. the business. The investors were really jittery. Some of them were very good friends of mine, so not only would we lose credibility, I would lose friends as well, which was a pretty, kind of a pretty shaky ground to be in. And we had about 3 months of cash left for the business, no clear business model. And obviously, at that point, I was in a very, very low point. And so was my other co-founder, who's the one left in the business. There was a glimmer of hope. There's always a glimmer of hope if you see hard. And one of the things that happened is that we found that while the Groupon model was not working for us, what we found is that a lot of brands wanted us to help generate leads for them. So, the likes of Zipcar and other business services providers, and said, hey, we find it very, very hard to acquire users. It seems like you've found a way to acquire them through social channels, so can you help us? And that really helped us kind of make the first pivot to the business. So at some point, we were selling franking machines on Facebook. It was just amazing. You're putting in imagery of franking machines, which is And even the biggest franking machine company in the world, Pitney Bowes, they were absolutely gobsmacked. Like, how could you sell franking machines through Facebook and generate leads for us? But we managed to do that because we had no choice. The only choice was finding a cheaper way of acquiring SMEs, so using social channels. So that was the first pivot for our business. We moved towards lead generation in 6 months roughly after we kind of had raised some angel investment. That actually brought some capital back into the business, and we kind of stabilized the business. We started turning profitable. We didn't want to go to any institutional investors. We didn't want to go back to our investors because we realized that, look, this is not right now, as it is, an investable business. So the timing of raising capital is obviously very, very important. So we did that lead generation for roughly about a year, stabilized the business, and but then we felt that we were generating a lot of leads, helping build recurring revenue businesses for other brands, and we said, would be a lot easier, would sleep a lot better at night if we just had a recurring revenue business. It was as simple as that. Don't have to worry about every month, just have a recurring revenue business. And at that point, we said, hey, why don't we took this bold step and said, we'll flip our model, and instead of being free for SMEs and users on our platform and generating revenue from the back end, we will actually make it a closed group where we make it front end recurring revenue. So we launched a subscription product for our audience. It took us about 4 to 6 months to build something. We already had the brand relationships, the perk providers, and we launched a subscription product called the Gold Card. So after launch, that worked really, really well for about 3 months, and we found that our primary acquisition channel, which was Facebook at that point in time, and some Twitter activity as well, the acquisition cost went up about 6x in 3 months, and that just killed the end user subscription product we had. So obviously that created a lot of complex conversations inside the business. However, again, there was another glimmer of hope, and there's always a glimmer of hope. And what we found is that a lot of brands wanted to white label our product. So the likes of British Gas, Bupa, WorldPay, and so on and so forth, and they wanted to offer our program, but under their own brand, to their customers. And that was basically kind of the third pivot in our business. And that basically, and on the back of that, we closed a few million pounds worth of deals that essentially served as our funding round. It's just that it came from our customers, so we had obviously a lot of control over it. And so we launched a white label customer engagement, customer loyalty product towards the end of 2013. And what happened as we launched this program is that a lot of customers who were getting access to our rewards and perks actually were really, really happy with it, said, hey, can we offer this to our employees? And that's where we found an opportunity in the market where we provide employee benefits and perks for the SME audience. And we created a new market, which is around employee benefits for SMEs. And typically, employee engagement, employee benefit providers were heavily focused on the corporate market. So if you're 1,000 plus, 5,000 plus employees, there are a ton of providers who are willing to offer you employee benefit solutions. But if you're in the SME space, there's no one out there. So, so about 2.5 years ago, we launched Perkbox as a brand, rebranded the business to Perkbox, focused on employee engagement solutions and customer engagement solutions, still focusing on kind of our biggest asset, which is acquiring SMEs in a very, very cost-effective and a technology-driven way. And since then, the growth has been pretty phenomenal in the business, and I'll share some numbers with you. Last year, towards the end of last year, we closed our first institutional round from Draper in the UK, Draper Spray, and that was, and we combined with the crowd round, so that was about 4.3 million on 80 million pounds post, which is about 100 million plus dollars. And basically from 2011 to 2016, for about 5 years, we took $500,000, 350,000 pounds, and used that to generate about a 20 million run rate, $20 million run rate business. Because last year, we did about $20 million, 14.5 million pounds. And so taking that amount of capital, $500,000, and creating a 20 million run rate business is something that we're very proud about. And what is more exciting is that we ensured that our early investors in this round got a very fair deal. So, so the early stage investors Draper got the same terms as the early stage investors in terms of no preference shares, and everything was on an equal basis for everyone. So it was, and then subsequently we raised another 6.6 million as a secondary. So from Draper, where they bought out some of the early stage investors, and some of the angel investors got about a 45x return. So that's kind of the story of where we generated a 45x return through 3 pivots, almost ran out of cash. 3 months worth of cash, almost shut down the business twice, and something that is a story we always share with our people who join the business, because that's very closely aligned with the values of the business. So if you look at what we really did, what really helped us succeed was, again, taking our biggest handicap, which made our business not really investable in 2011, and creating and making that our biggest asset, which is focusing on SMEs, but really figuring out that SME market, understanding how the segments operate, and then figuring out how to apply B2C social strategies for B2B acquisition. So that's the theme that's consistent throughout every change, every pivot that we made in the business. So talking about the key learnings. So one of the key learnings for us as a business was the importance of cash and being capital efficient. Because we were very, very capital efficient as a business, and we really had no choice, we had the flexibility, we had the choice. We could change the business model where needed and align it with the needs of the market. So that was probably the biggest learning for me and my co-founder as we kind of scale the business, the power of cash, the power of capital efficiency. So a lot of startups are right now, I think it becomes a vanity number sometimes how much money you raise. I don't think that's a good idea. I think people should focus on the cash and the capital efficiency of the business. And obviously that's where a lot of the unit economics that we talk about and you guys have heard a lot about in this particular conference becomes a lot more interesting. So we've always kept our unit economics very, very tight and driven a very, very capital efficient business. People, mission, and culture. I think for a lot of tech companies, a lot of startups, this is an afterthought. A lot of tech companies don't focus on that till too late. And one of the things that we learned, and we were very, very fortunate, we were lucky that we got some great, great people to join the business. They were very, very passionate about our mission of helping small businesses grow and succeed. So we were able to attract great talent when we were not in a position to pay a lot of money. And that really, really helped us with our pivots, how we scaled, and how we were able to be so capital efficient. So and we have really, really honed in on that. That's one of the biggest things for us as a business, is honing on that mission and the culture of the organization. And that would be my recommendation to every startup, a SaaS business, is not to leave it too late, because that essentially drives the acceleration in your business. relentless focus. You may ask, look, you changed your business model 3 times. What are you talking about in terms of focus? We did change our business model and pivoted, but once we identified the right direction or the right model based on the user feedback, based on the tests we were doing, we relentlessly focused on it. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges a lot of growth companies face, which is, when you are growing, you got too many things and options on the table, and you got to really, really pick. It's harder to pick what not to do, and really hone in that focus. Test-driven approach, that's the mantra for the business. While we test new things, 8 out of 10 things we do probably fail, but once we identify that works, we really relentlessly focus on it. And then finally, funding strategy. So funding strategy, how do you fund your business, when to raise capital, how to raise capital, who to get involved, is something we've learned a lot about. And we're very proud that we've made our early stage angel investors deliver a great return to them and done it in a very fair way where they have not been disadvantaged compared to new institutional investors. So where we are as a business, just to kind of recap, so 2011, raised 350,000 pounds, $500,000. 2016, about 11 million pounds put into the business, out of which about 6.5 million was a secondary buying out early stage investors. So in terms of net, the capital gone into the business is about 4.5 million pounds, which probably is about $6 million right now. We're a team of close to 180 people right now, so we've gone about 9x growth in the last 2.5 years. We've been very fortunate to have some great talent from companies like Uber, Deliveroo, Yahoo, Amazon as a part of our exec team. And from a revenue standpoint, so we did about, in 2015, we did about $6 million. This year, we expect about 30 million pounds, which is, the exchange rate keeps changing, so it's probably about $40 million plus. So pretty rapid acceleration over the last 2 years for the business, and we've got about 500,000 paying subscribers right now, and we expect that to grow 10x over the next 3 years. So pretty rapid growth on the back of very little money is something that we are very, very proud of, and a lot of our angel investors are still in the business. Some of them have released 10 to 20% of their equity that they held on for 6 years, but a lot of them are obviously waiting for the big growth that we're anticipating in the business. So what is our growth engine? Obviously, we talk about LTV CAC, and we're running right now at an LTV CAC ratio of over 7, and that's really kind of fueling our growth. This is coming again from taking our biggest handicap and converting it to our biggest asset. Our biggest handicap being focus on SMEs, and our biggest asset being understanding the different SME segments and honing in on using B2C social strategies for B2B acquisition. That's basically, this is a representation of our biggest asset, which is our LTV CAC ratio. So this is really fueling our growth. In terms of some of the recent recognition, 3 areas very, very important for a business in the employee benefit space. Obviously, culture is prime, so we were recognized as one of the top 100 small companies to work for in the UK. We also were recognized as in the top 20 fastest growing private technology companies in the UK. There's a Tech Track 100, and then also shortlisted for the Investor All Stars Award for the returns we have delivered to our investors by GP Bullhound and Growth Business. So from a cultural standpoint, in our business, what is our DNA? We are user first. We're not HR-centric like a lot of traditional employee benefits businesses have been very consultancy-oriented, very HR-focused. While we focus heavily on the employee, we believe that the employee is happy, the HR teams, their MDs, their managers will all be happy. We embed tech in everything we do. I know it's kind of a lame thing to say in a SaaS conference, but you'd be surprised by how many HR related products are not really utilizing technology all across the funnel. And that's what we do. All across the marketing funnel, all across the acquisition funnel, tech is complete, across our customer success teams, it's completely technology driven. We're the only employee benefits brand in the UK. Our traditional competitors have some kind of brand presence with HR teams, but really what we have worked very, very hard on is building a brand that employees recognize so that the bottom-up marketing works for us. So that when employees go to the HR and say, hey, I had Perkbox in my previous company, I'd like to have it here as well. What do you have? So we've worked very, very hard at building a brand. And lastly, but most importantly, we are a very mission and value-driven company. As I said, one of the things that we did really, really well is very early stages focus on people, mission, and culture. And that's still true to it. We're still true to it, and we're a very mission and values-driven business. These are our kind of core 6 values. I'm not going to go into each and every one of them, but really hone in on a couple that I'm personally very, very passionate about is, try it, test it, get it done. Obviously, as you've seen through the presentation, the business has evolved through a number of pivots, and it would not have been possible if we were not trying new things, keeping our ear to the ground, learning from our customers, and making them very, very successful. The other one is obviously, when you've been through what we've been through, nothing is really impossible, and that's the mantra that we have, engendered in our teams, and empowered them to have that tested tried approach with the mentality that nothing is impossible. And then finally, we've tried to create in our organization a zero fear environment. That's what we talk about internally a lot. Our teams, regardless of which level you are open, and are able to express what they feel about, how they feel about the business. So that's been, again, a very, very critical aspect to our success, that you don't get into the groupthink mentality. People can ask the right questions, can make the right decisions without worrying about their level inside the business. That's pretty much it. Thank you for your time. I'd be very happy to take any questions. I think we've got Slido. Cool. Are there any questions from the floor before I get into the Slido?
So they have subscriptions, who's paying? SMEs or vendors?
The SMEs are paying. So basically, employers are paying for their employees to have access to the program. So it's employer funded.
How much is this?
Sorry?
Well,
it really depends on the size of the company. So there's no kind of a flat pricing. So it depends on the size of the company. We've got a company which has got 15,000 employees, different pricing compared to someone who's got 5 employees. It's complete, and then there are tiers inside the program. But it's very, very reasonable. And it delivers amazing ROI. Cool. So don't SMBs in this space require a lot of hand-holding and build success. So how do you scale the onboarding process? So this is something actually we've worked on very hard in over the last 12, 18 months. So you're absolutely right. So what we do is that our customer success team has got segmentation built in. So between their different team members looking after the 20 to 50 employee businesses, there are different members looking after 50 to 250, and there are different team members, what we call key account managers, looking after the 250 plus business. A lot of the onboarding process that we have built in have been very, very, again, technology enabled. So it's a very, very simple infrastructure platform for SMEs to pretty much do a self-sign up and onboard their employees onto the program. That's one way we really, really differentiate in the market, because a lot of the legacy providers who were focusing on the large corporates and companies with thousands and thousands of employees, their whole onboarding model was getting on premise, running training sessions, having people on the ground, and that's obviously not feasible in the SMB space. So what we did is a very technology-enabled onboarding process, pretty much self-serve for the account managers, and then back it up with a big knowledge center on the platform with lots of videos, lots of training material, lots of collateral that the HR managers, the directors can go on, download, use themselves. So that's really helped us focus our customer success efforts, which are one-on-one on the larger accounts, the 250 plus employees, while the 50 to 250 get bit less hand-holding than the larger accounts get, and then pretty much for anywhere sub 50, it's pretty much self-serve. So we've segmented the different customers and tied customer success and onboarding strategies at different levels to those particular customers to ensure that we're delivering as much results to the customer as possible, but at the same time optimizing our costs. And obviously, we use a lot of technology in the process to make it easy for the customer. How do we reward and incentivize employees internally? Do you use Perkbox? How is your own product received by our own teams? So that's really obviously a very interesting question. So I think what's really important is that what we focus on as a business for our customers and internally is what we call the financial, emotional, and physical well-being of our employees. So obviously we gotta live our mantra and what we're selling. So from a financial well-being standpoint, obviously all the perks that we offer are available to our own employees. We do a lot of things around learning budgets that we have for our employees, and help them in terms of their charitable activities that they're doing and stuff like that. So we want to make sure financially they're very happy where they are. From an emotional standpoint, we've got a very, very millennial centric employee base. And obviously, what's really, really important is in terms of the millennial employees is what you call the autonomy, mastery, and purpose, which is from an autonomy standpoint, we try to give our teams as much autonomy as possible in terms of what they do, regardless of their kind of experience. From a mastery standpoint, we try to really give them a lot of training, whether it's aligned with exactly what they're doing in the business or not. We always want to grow them as an individual. And from a purpose standpoint, we really, really focus very heavily on kind of the mission and the values of the business. We double down on sharing with our teams what are the missions and the values of the business. We actually, when we created our mission statement, when we created our values, identified our values, that was actually an effort that every team member participated in. We created groups. People created the stories which they have experienced in Perkbox, and it's through those stories we actually identified the key values of the business. Because what's really, really important is that when you create that, the purpose behind an organization, people need to believe in it. You cannot have a mission statement that's 10 lines long with all the mumbo-jumbo, corporate mumbo-jumbo. No one's going to relate to it. It's not going to work. So what we've done is taken a very bottom-up approach to actually ensuring that people believe in the purpose of the company and therefore driving that emotional well-being. That's so, so important for the millennial audience, which basically is about 50% of the workforce in most in countries. So that's how we are incentivizing our own employees, financial, emotional, and physical well-being. Obviously, we do the usual, the yoga classes and the football tournaments and stuff like that to drive that physical well-being inside the company. At what point did you realize there was a glimmer of hope? What was the process of discovering it? So my background is in sales and partnerships, so there's always hope. You just got to have, sometimes it's easier to see, sometimes it's further away, but you got to look hard. And we found that at different stages, different glimmers of hope, but sometimes a lot bigger to see, sometimes smaller. And when we made the first pivot, that's when we really found that, hey, there is a demand for the product. People are not necessarily using what we intended them to use the product for, but they're still coming to us. And it's very, very hard to get big brands excited in what you're doing when you're a startup. And when you see them getting excited, we found, hey, there's a market for this. So that was the first time. I found that, when I was personally at a rock bottom, my co-founder was not also in a very good place. We found that glimmer of hope. And once it worked for the first time around, the next time around it became a lot easier because we got through what was the biggest hump for us. I think my time's up. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time.